How do we know Christianity is the one true religion? Let's pour some coffee on that. Hey guys, this is Father Brad, and you're watching Coffee Talk, where we drink coffee and talk about Jesus. And particularly, this episode is brought to you by River Road Coffee of Baton Rouge. I am now a high school chaplain. That means 2 days a week I'm at St. Thomas Aquinas High School in Hammond, America. Did you know they say Hammond, America, not Hammond, Louisiana? Don't know why. But I'm a high school chaplain, and I do these things called Stump a Priest, which means they can put in questions into a question box anonymously. So I go into freshman classes on the first week of the month and sophomores on the second, and so on and so forth. And this question was brought to me by a senior at St. Thomas, and I thought it was so good I was going to use it for Coffee Talk. Here's their question. What makes Christianity the one true religion? When there are thousands of different religions using the same simple concept of an almighty being who we must devote our lives to worshiping? What a great question. I bet you've asked yourself that question, and maybe in the past, maybe you've had it answered, or maybe you've come to peace with it, but I know it's a question that actually was a big point in my life right at the same time period when I was a senior in high school, and when Mr. Timmerick of St. Michael, he answered it, and he put forth a really beautiful answer. He had us read some church documents, and I think it can be answered. Some might look at the similarity between the different faiths and they might be scandalized. They might hurt their faith. They might say, how are there so many religions that basically say some of the fundamental same things, right? That there's one God, where they speak about morality, and a lot of times that morality is universal. It's held by all these different cultures. You know, you shall not steal, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder. Or even some of the stories, there might be different flood narratives. Different cultures and different religions might have ancient texts that express the reality of this great flood in this primordial time period in human history. Or there's a great prophet or hero or teacher or guide, and he's there to guide us, right? Whether it be Siddhartha Gautama or Gandhi, well, that's more modern times, but Jesus, obviously, Muhammad. And people see that and they go, wait a second, this is hurting my faith. I actually look at it and let it grow my faith. I see the universal desire of the divine as a proof of God's existence. I use the analogy of a stomach, right? If you have a stomach and the nature, the telos, the reason for the stomach is to digest food and give nutrition, then the very presence of the stomach proves the existence of food. Right? The stomach's made for something. We don't have things in nature that have a purpose and don't have a fulfillment of that purpose. Hunger's the same way, just on a passion level, right? If you are hungry, that means there's something to fulfill that hunger. There's a universal desire for the divine. It seems just like a stomach. That desire, just like being hungry, that desire proves the existence of something that would fulfill that desire. I heard it put another way when I was in high school. Religion is man's search for God. Religion is man saying there's something more. I have great infinite desires and all these finite things can't fulfill it. We all have this written in our heart. Christianity is God's search for man. Christianity is God fulfilling those great desires that might have manifested themselves in all these different religions who get some of it absolutely right, and we share a lot. But the perfection of it, the full fulfillment of it, the best meal is Christ's revelation to us. It's God becoming one of us to give us what we need and what we desire. So religion is man's search for God. Christianity, right? Jesus is God's search for man. He comes to us. That's what the incarnation is about. I want to quote now one of the Second Vatican Council documents. It's called Nostra Aetate. It's the Council Fathers speaking about Christianity, and Catholicism in particular, and its relationship to world religions. It says this: from ancient times down to the present, there is found among various peoples a certain perception of that hidden power which hovers over the course of things and over the events of human history. At times, some indeed have come to the recognition of a supreme being, or even of a father. This perception and recognition penetrates their lives with a profound religious sense. And this is the church fathers. This is the church's official teaching that written in the human heart, this is what we've been talking about, written in the human heart is a desire for the divine. And that is good. And we recognize that and we honor that. So it's not surprising that over vast swaths of the earth and over vast swaths of history, that there's been many people and religions that express similar truths, even coming at it from different directions. I'll continue with Nostra Aetate. The Catholic Church rejects nothing that is true and holy in these religions. She regards with sincere reverence those ways of conduct and of life, those precepts and teachings which, though differing in many aspects from the ones she holds and sets forth, nevertheless often reflect a ray of that truth which enlightens all men. I want to riff on that right there, the ray of truth. So all different religions might possess a ray of truth of which the church expresses herself. Except the church is the Son. The church is literally the Son, like S-O-N, like Jesus, his revelation. And so if there's anything that a world religion or a particular philosophy or just natural law expresses, we don't reject it. And further, Nostra Aetate states, indeed, she, meaning the church, proclaims and ever must proclaim Christ, the way, the truth, and the life, in whom men may find the fullness of religious life, in whom God has reconciled all things to himself. So it's a both and. The church, and really just Christ, right? His revelation, he founded the church, is the fullness of revelation. It's the full Son. It's all the rays. And all these other religions and faiths in varying degrees might conform themselves and express similar truths. And we should all desire unity, which should be found in the Logos himself, Jesus Christ, reason himself, the Word. From the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, as we hear in John. And so all Christianity, God's search for man. So finally, how do we know Christianity is the true one? Right? It seems kind of maybe conceited or something. Well, it's not by our merits. It's not by merits of priests, right? I'm fallen. I'm a doofus. We're all doofuses. I have two thoughts. I'm just going to limit it to two. I'm sure there's other proofs and stuff like that. But this is my two thoughts. First, its fundamental claim is so fantastic, right? So out there that it's only reasonable for 300 years people would give their life to it. And that's the fundamental claim is resurrection, that Jesus rose from the dead. It's so fantastic. The only explanation for 300 years of faithfulness during persecution is its truth. Why would a group of people, generation after generation, be persecuted and killed and martyred and oppressed when it's not true? Why would they die for a lie? The gospel in this first 300 years of the church did not give the disciples power. It didn't give them money. It didn't give them prestige or influence. It gave them the cross. It gave them the sword. They died for what they believed, and you only die for what you believe is true. And yet it grew. It grew to great lengths. And it didn't grow because of the sword. It didn't grow because people were being forced to convert by the sword and by armies. Yeah, Christianity has its history of armies and wars and atrocities. Yeah, we get it. But the first 300 years in which it grew exponentially, it was persecuted. I think that's a pretty cool proof of its veracity, its truth. Secondly, and I'm going to turn to my man, Hilaire Belloc. And Hilaire is hilarious. Maybe that's why they called him that. Probably not. His mom just named him. But he said this: the Catholic Church is an institution I am bound to hold divine. But for unbelievers, a proof of its divinity might be found in the fact that no merely human institution conducted with such knavish imbecility would have lasted a fortnight. That's 2 weeks, 14 days. Basically, we've had some ridiculous leadership. We've had some vicious popes. Remember we talked about the doofusness of the institutional church? You might know it yourself. I've heard stories of priests who yelled at people in the confessional. Who just say, why'd you do that? And yet we still come. And the church still grows. And the church is still here, even though it's had, as Heller Belloc said, it's been led by such knavish imbecility. All other human institutions would have already been dead. We tried to kill it by ourselves. And we couldn't. Guess why? Because it was led by the divine. We're broken vessels, but God keeps the bride going. And so whenever faced with the brokenness of the church, the institutional church, priests, bishops, lay leaders, leaders of ministry, your youth minister, if they're a jerk, you know what? I'm sorry. But it actually proves the truth of the church. That we've lasted more than any other institution or organization in the history of the world. We've lasted through the brokenness of humanity because it's led by the guidance of God.